I was listening to that again and again, and I want to share with you that each time it's, the three words that strike the heart, right? The three words of Garib Doja. Each time Lama Lina is striking my heart in a different way. And I don't know what happened this weekend. Really something very special. Maybe because, all technical issues came up. But what happened is that she gave an amazing teaching. So if you do have time, I hope you do. So go to the Facebook because it's not on YouTube yet. I don't know if it's going to be on YouTube. Go to Facebook, to Lama Lina Live, and watch that amazing teaching because I don't know what happened there, really, in El Paso. Something was in the water, I guess, because she gave something that really brought us, to a new level. So please, I really advise you to go there. Of course, this is Dzogchen, and we are in Tantra group now. So we'll dive into the Tantra, and it doesn't mean that if you have, the Dzogchen perspective, I cannot teach now Tantra without the Dzogchen perspective, because that's what I do in the last, I don't know, 6, 7 years, but I'm combining the two together. So don't hesitate to ask questions if you have that you think that they are not related to Tantra, because everything is related to Tantra, like everything is related to life, like everything is related to Dzogchen. So we'll start with the lineage prayer. And again, when we think about the lineage prayer, it doesn't matter who is the one that you just listen to. It can be me or Lama Lina or the Buddha himself, or even one of your friends, which might be a Buddha now. We just don't recognize that, or maybe you do recognize that. But try to listen to that as if you are receiving the whole lineage in front of you. I remember that once Lama Lina said that, that her teacher was very much emphasizing the mind-to-mind teachings. And when I feel that the lineage prayer comes into my mind, I feel that it's mind-to-mind. Try to see how you combine that. Even if you, at the beginning, do that only intellectually, okay? Maybe you don't feel it, maybe you don't engage with it. Even intellectually, it's very nice to do it at the beginning, okay? So let's start with the lineage prayer. And I really hope that, it by heart, I don't want to put any slides because it feels like it's something which is very, putting some kind of barrier between you and me, and I don't want that. Chöku'i zango gombo'i, doje sembagerab doje dang, shere singi bardu shing labde, de dang matsung tatas tuchung chi, dzogchen chupela mala sowa, ogen pe majunela sowa. Doje chan chetiro narodang, mapamila gompo tsatsapa, na pupadang palen rupasho, kagyula manamla soa. Geluk namanamla solwa. Vikram kagyu namanamla soa. Lama Lina namanamla soa. Pakundu zang dam yerme pa, gungaram doje shing tak pa, chetidang nisume pai, palamanon chetente chong. So I guess you remember that we are now in the first model, like we called it, although I don't know we are not in the university, we're more of friends talking together. But the first model was mainly focused on the history or the origins of Tantra. And as we discussed, it started in India way back before the Buddha, by the way, because the Buddha, when he fled from the castle, so he already met the Tantra in a different mode, but he met the Tantra. And then when the invasion of the Muslims into India, it started to spread around Asia, and of course started also in Tibet. But what's interesting in Tibet, that this culture was so ready for Tantra because of the born traditional, cultural, ceremonial things. So it just was part of the culture. When you say part of the culture, the tankas that were hanging down there on the walls of their houses, in everywhere when the temples were, children grew up in this culture. You didn't have to tell them this is, I don't know, white Tara, or this is green Tara, or this is Vajrayogini, or whatever was hanging there. And there was no secrecy. The secrecy only starts afterwards when they started to teach in the more from the monastic way in the monasteries. And in the monasteries, actually, my first teacher, Geshe Michael Roach, he said that 25 years he had to study. I mean, remember that the children got in around age 8. 25 years they have to study there in order to be introduced to the fact that there are tantric scripture and traditions. And that's when back in the back road, in the backyard, in the back room, and people were doing a lot of ceremonies with regard to bringing people into Tantra. But that was weird, because if I am a Tibetan and my aunt or my uncle or my brother is practicing that, it's all there. It's out loud and open. So there were a lot of controversy thinking about this secrecy. But what happened, as I told you last week, I think that when Tantra came to the West after the Chinese invasion, when Tantra came to the West, so the secrecy was very important, not from the point of view of the teachers to keep something secret, but from a point of view that they wanted to protect the students. They saw us, very ignorant in what is to be brought up in this kind of culture. We were not having anything that has to do with that. As a matter of fact, some of our culture even was very against paganic things, because that it wasn't a paganic thing, but people were thinking that those ceremonies were paganic. So they wanted to protect us. But what happens now? So we just summarize in 2 minutes what we just discussed in the last few sessions. But what happens now? We are in the 21st century. I think if we consider that around 1960, something like that, the Tantra came into the West. Okay, not only Tantra, Buddhism, with the escape of the lamas and all the Rinpoches and all the Tulkos and all the nuns and monks, they were fleeing from Tibet, those that were able to flee there. And a new generation came up. But there are still few lamas that are still teaching in the old manner, okay? I was part of the FPMT Center, for example, centers around the world for a while, for many years. So what happens is it was very interesting because Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who was a student of Lama Yeshe, as you know, Lama Yeshe was Lama Lina's first teacher. He was keeping the secrecy and he was keeping the ceremony exactly the way they are. But many other students that brought up in the Tibetan culture in India after the invasion of the Chinese, and they received everything from the old Tibetan lamas like Ling Rinpoche and Zong Rinpoche and the Dalai Lama and even Lama Zopa Rinpoche, they have received permission from their teacher to spread the news. Some of you maybe have been students of Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche. He never kept it secret. Or, Gorchen Rinpoche? Gorchen Rinpoche, there were times that he kept it secret, but now everything is online. He doesn't keep anything that has to do with Tantra in secret because they all say now that Tantra keep itself as a secret from the one who is not ready for that. So in this way, we're very lucky because, if we are able to practice Tantra and to receive it, the traditional Orthodox Tantra, I'm not talking about the New Agey stuff, because if you practice the original Tantra for a while, you can very easily see and to discriminate how you are seeing something which is something New Agey versus the original, okay? But we are really lucky because we have everything online. Even our class, okay? Even when Lama Lina gives all kind of initiations and empowerments, she always put it online. And she refers to that in her meetings, oh, you should do Chen Ruzi. Go and I have it online. Go and receive the empowerment and start practicing it. And I really have my own thought about that, and I want to share it with you, because what happens to something which is very open? I'm not talking about, the old school secrecy that you have to do, whatever, there is a say in the Tibetan scriptures that in order to receive Tantra, you have to bring your a gold in the weight of your own weight. Well, I'm not so skinny. I would have to work very hard in order to accumulate so much gold in order to give it to my teacher in order to receive the Tantra. So we don't have to do it anymore. But is it right not for the teacher? Is it right for us? Because we know that if you put an effort in order to achieve something, even let's say, I don't know, bachelor degree or some kind of, I don't know, PhD or something, we put a lot of efforts in order to achieve that. We do the studying, and then we have exams, and we have everything. So when we are receiving this, whatever it is, we feel some kind of achievement. And also what happens during the process? We are growing up, as Lama Lina loves to say, that since we were born, everything, every book we read, every person that we met, every, every dog that we had, or every spouse that we have, we are changing according to the interconnection that we have with everything that's around us. So what is happening if I don't need to put any effort in order to receive something which is so transformative like Tantra? In the course of the years that I've been in many sanghas and I met many students, I can tell you that those who were just, took the tantric empowerments on the go, let's say, it wasn't very short after they received it, it was put on the shelf. Well, if it was put on the shelf, that was with respect. Many times they just skipped that. They didn't do anything. So we are going back to the motivation. Why are we doing what we do? Why do you practice Tantra? Why do you want to practice Tantra? Is there a reason that you wake up in the morning and you say, I want to practice Tantra? What is this reason? Why do you do that? I think that to find out for ourselves, you don't have to do anything that has to do with other people. For ourselves, only for ourselves, to clarify the motivation, why we do what we do. especially when practicing Tantra, because, practicing Tantra requires efforts. It's not something that, we just receive something and we put it on the shelf and then we are already enlightened. No, it takes an effort. It takes time. It takes something you have to learn, and you do not have to, but if you want to do, you learn that, you study, and then you start meditate, and then you start doing the sadhanas, and then you are going from a stage to stage, from a stage to stage. This is a very linear path. It's not something that happens in a snapshot, okay? So if you want to change our patterns, the way we are, and to become enlightened, as we'll say, okay? Although, remember, this is not Dzogchen, okay? Become still takes something to do, okay? Doing involving that. So why would I put any efforts in that? It has to start somewhere with the understanding that where I am now is something that we will just put one word to combine everything. We are in a suffering mode. Okay, you know that from the Buddhist, the Sutrayana, Mahayana tradition, why, all those kind of, different kinds of suffering. I will not go into it now. But we do have some kind of suffering. Even the fact that we have been born and that we are getting old, and sometimes we're getting sick, and we might get even sicker in the future, and we'll die, unless you're a Buddha, it's a suffering. You know that. When last time that you had some kind of, I don't know, some kind of cold, even cold, okay, or pneumonia, it was a suffering. So why would I put any effort unless I want to cut off the suffering? And Tantra is a promise that if you're going to do it, and you're going to do it right, you can cut off your suffering in one lifetime. Remember, it's not Dzogchen. And Dzogchen, it's in a minute, in a snapshot. If you're capable of doing that, because most of us are not. Like Lamalina likes to tell the story about the Chikchawa. Okay, most of us are not Chikchawas. Okay, Chikchawa is somebody that received the teaching and all of a sudden they gone through the stage that they were now. So if I have some kind of tendencies or paradigms or patterns in my mind, and I want to change that because that's the cause of suffering, as we know. So I have to do something. So we start by starting the teaching about the four thoughts that turn out the mind. And if you don't know what they are, Lilith is here. You can go to her teachings group and have that discussion and teachings about that. So we go through the four thoughts that turns the mind, and this is just the infrastructure. And then when we understand that we want to continue, we start with receiving an empowerment. What is this empowerment? Why do we need to have this empowerment? Sometimes it's called initiation, sometimes it's called empowerment. Why do we need that? And why, when we receive that now online, why sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work? The empowerment is some kind of a path that opens up. We are supposed to be opened up to a totally different mandala. Mandala is a world of phenomena or whatever is happening around you. Mandala is not the lovey-dovey thing, okay? We are in mandala, although we are in suffering, okay? So the empowerments open up some kind of quick glazing into a mandala, and then it's closed up. when you go out from the empowerment, are you still in the mandala? If you are, you're a Chikchawa, okay? Otherwise, you're in the totally regular world. So being able to open up to the new mandala, to the new world, something that is different from the way you think, different from the way you are perceiving the world, it's very unique. So this is one thing. And like when we do the initiation and the introduction initiation, we want to be pointing out about Tawa. So here the teachers are pointing out about a new perspective. They don't call it Tawa. It's a new perspective. It's a new way of looking at the world, okay? So this is one thing that happens in the empowerment. The other thing is that you want to create some kind of bonding. If you have been in my previous course about the tantric samaya vows, we called it samaya. So you want to create some kind of samaya. Samaya is a commitment, some kind of a commitment to the lineage, to the teachings, to the practice. When you do that with the teacher that gives you the commitment, or the teacher that gives you the empowerment, okay? You do it because the first thing that happens not the first, but some of the first lines that happens in every empowerment is that I am, and then you put your name, accepting or wanting to please give me commitments. Give me commitment, and I'm willing to take these commitments on me. It's like the marriage ceremonial, okay? But we just married not with a person, we were married with a practice, or with intention or motivation. Nowadays, most of the teachers, they do not give any commitments. And did you ever thought it, because, and I told you always, before you take any empowerment, please ask the teacher that you're going to receive an empowerment from him or her. What are the commitments that you are requiring before you're taking the empowerment? We just now had a beautiful empowerment and teaching about Vajrayogini from Drupal Rinchen Rinpoche. And his commitment was that you're going to receive the empowerment, and you're going to do 100,000 mantras from the mantra of Vajrayogini, preferably in 1 year, but you can do it until the end of your life. I can tell you that the first Vajrayogini empowerment that I have received, my commitments were totally different. My commitments were that I have to do 4 lerungs. Lerung is a 1-month retreat that you accumulate 100,000 mantras and do other things. You do the 4 sessions of the sadhana every day for 30 days, and then you accumulate. And then by the end of the retreat, you are required to do some kind of a ceremonial that's called fire puja, which is a very elaborated fire puja. And you have to commit to do at least 4 of those before you end your life. Now, how many of us can go into to do a solitary silence retreat somewhere else, not in our daily job, family hustle bustle, and do that? It requires a lot of what Lama Lina likes to call gonzo, right? Gonzo, even money, support from the Sangha, support from your family, support from your work. How many of you can do that? And what happens if you want to do not only the commitment of the 4 lerungs, 4-month solitary retreat? You don't have to do it in a row. You can do it accumulated over the years. What happens if you want to go to the Lerung Cha, which is the great retreat, we call that? Great retreat is 3 years and 3 months. How many of us can do 40 months retreat? It can be either in a row or accumulated, like I did. I did an accumulated more than 40-month retreat, okay? with that. So how many of us can do that? You have to have a strong ambition and a strong motivation to do that. So what happens if you don't do anything of that? You don't have, if the teacher is so compassionate that he doesn't give you any commitments. And nowadays, that's what happens. And the first question is, what are the commitments? And he said, no commitments. Why would you practice anything if you don't have a commitment? Even if you go to the university or you go to high school, you have commitments. You have to, I don't know, to be present in the class, to go for exams, to do whatever is needed in order to complete that. So are we going to do anything that has to do with no commitments? Nobody's forcing you to do anything. It's your life. But if you want to change from where you are now into be enlightened, whatever the name contains, okay, I don't want to get into it right now. It's not me or anybody else who will give you a commitment. The commitments, it's only you. You're the only one that commit to something. And if you don't commit to the path, don't expect the result. Unless you're a Chiktawa, which is okay. And I didn't mean to discourage you here with this talk. What I'm trying to say is that when those teachers, those amazing lamas that came to the West and were giving us these amazing teachings, when they saw that we are so not ready to take some kind of commitments, and with a lot of passion and compassion, they did something which was amazing. They said, okay, what we're going to do is we're not going to give you any commitments. But they did something very important. They planted the seed. We don't know, if you understand karma, so we don't know when the seeds will be ripened. We don't know how long it takes. Maybe it will be in this life, maybe in other life. But if you are in a situation that you received an empowerment, at least water the seed that you have planted. And the watering of the seed that we have planted, it's 3 mantras a day of the same empowerment that you have received. This is the planting. I mean, this is even a dryness, okay? Because the drops are so little, 3 mantras a day. But at least you will take it as your commitments. It's not somebody else will give you this commitment. So if I had, I don't know, many empowerments. So yes, it takes me, if I'm doing 3 mantras of all the empowerments that I have received, it will take me about 10 minutes, okay? 3 mantras, only 3 mantras from all of them, okay? Some of them are long, okay? Like Vajrayogini or Vajrasattva are very long, okay? So, but what is 10 minutes as a comparison to an effort that you're going to put in order to receive something which is so amazing as transformation? It's a mind transformation. So as we said, the empowerment, you're just giving a glance to the amazing mandala that you can be part of it if you're doing the work. You are being brought to the path. You create some samayas with the lineage, through the teacher that is giving you the empowerment, and you have been planted a seed. Either this seed of enlightenment will be ripened this life, or maybe in other lives. If you are here in this group, I guess that the seed have been planted not in this life, because there was a reason why you were going to an empowerment. Otherwise, you won't be here in this class, right? It's interesting, no? Most of us don't remember what happened to us last week. So how can we remember what happened to us, a few years ago, unless you've been in the regression retreat with Lamalina or with other teachers, and you find out what happened to you in your previous lives. I don't know if you know or not. So now that we have been more specific about the motivation, it's not just about myself. Because if you understand karma, even a little bit, you know that everything that is around us is just a projection from our previous karma. So if I want a better world to others, not to myself, the only way I can do that, it's not by changing the screens that this projection is projected on them. It's by changing the movie that has been projected on those screens, right? And that's what the path of Tantra does. We are working to change the movie. And the movie is a creation of our karma in this life and previous life that has been stored and now is getting into this projector and is projected on the world. This is how karma works. We can't change the screens. I mean, we can take, I don't know, a gun and kill everybody. The screen will be very much changed. Oh, well, it will be also changed. It will dive into our hell. Hell can be either in being in jail right now or maybe in other lives, okay? And we can't change the projector. The projector is a subjective mind that I have now. The only thing that we can change, it's through this, the movie that we have been accumulated and created, you know, shot after shot after shot after shot, and then created the long movie that we have, the long film that we have that now enter into the projection and now being projected outside the world. So what is the tool to change the movie? You are the director. You are the director, you are the actress, you are the choreography, you are the scenery, you're everything. So how do you do that? The main director, let's say, which is the Lama, that you are receiving the empowerment from him or her, he gives you the scripture. And what is the scripture that you have? This is the sadhana. You don't know how it works. We don't know. I mean, at the beginning, we start to read what is there in the sadhana, and we don't understand a word. I mean, we can understand English if it's been translated, but it's not understanding what is behind those words. But miraculously, it works because all the symbols that are hidden there in those amazing ways that this happened, and we do it again and again and again and again, and we study and we learn more and more of the practices that are embedded in there. Whoop, all of a sudden, our mind has been changed. And we see a different world. And you might even find yourself more and more in the mandala. The mandala that you were brought up at the beginning in the empowerment, and all of a sudden, you're there. Ups, and then you're in the real world. Real, I mean, there is no real world, which is real, right? But in your old world, okay? And then you are, again, he is making me mad, and she is terrifying me, and that happens to me, and I'm to blame, and this is one to blame, and I'm to blame, and I feel guilt, you know, all those kind of crips things that we are doing on the, and then all of a sudden, whoop, a glance into the mandala. And the tantric mandala is different from the Dzogchen mandala. The tantric mandala is been defined as something that you see everything as a creation of the, what's the right word for that? Divine world, okay? Divine, I would say. Maybe it's not the right one, but I'll choose the word divine, okay? Because if somebody was hitting me, and I understand that this is part of the movie that has been projected now, and somebody is hitting me, and I look at him right now, him or her, not in a sense of being victimized because somebody was hitting me, but looking at them and said, oh my, here is the Buddha doing an action in order to clean my karma. That doesn't mean that you don't put some lines and you don't give people to hit you, but they already did, right? And then it can also be in the other way around. Somebody just arrived into my house today and brought me a bunch of flowers. Oh my, who is this one who brought me a bunch of flowers? Why would they give me a bunch of flowers? This is a manifestation of a divine understanding of how karma works. And all of a sudden, the good things that happens and the bad thing that happens are manifesting as something which is so amazing. Sometimes they call it wrongly in the translation as pure. But when we think about something which is pure, it's also about a bunch of flowers, right? Oh, it's amazing. I'm in a pure world. I'm receiving flowers and stuff like that. And the guy that just hit me, he's not pure. This world is not pure. In Tantra, you don't use the word pure in this manner because pure means that it's working perfectly according to the karma. Remember, karma is the movie that you are projecting. So what do you want to do in order to change the movie? You can do so much in order to change the movie. You can create, there is a story about the first Panchen Lama that when he wanted to stop a war, okay, because he's pure conduct or pure behavior and pure mind, he was just scrolling into the fire zone in the war between those two gangs or whatever. And he was just standing there. He didn't do anything. And the war stopped. He couldn't project a war. Well, there is also the joke about the Dalai Lama that he said, people are telling him, oh, you won this Nobel Prize about peace and everything. What happens if you were the president of the US and you were in the Oval Room and the red telephone will ring and you will pick it up and then on the other line will somebody from saying, oh, United States have just been missiled with a nuclear weapon. What would you do? Will you press the button to send a nuclear weapon to those who sent it to you? And you know what was his answer? He laughed and he said, well, I'll tell you when I'll get there. And why did he say that? Because in his world, in his movie, he will never be in this situation. Never. So what are the situations in your life? Each one of you have a different situation. What are the situation in your life that you want to change? I'm in a horrible zone, I live in Israel. In Israel, we are in a war zone. I don't like it. And each time when I speak with Lamalina, I said, okay, what should I do now? I'm asking my teacher, what should I do now in order to change it? And she gives me a lot of practices and a lot of doing. And I'm doing that. And some days I can see a different mandala, and some days I see a different. But I never blame anybody in my mandala. The only one who created my mandala is myself in this life or in previous life. which I don't know who, I mean, I know who I was in previous life because I did the regression retreat, but no one to blame. So who am I to blame somebody here? So just remember, what does it mean to live in a situation, whatever your situation is, and you don't have anyone to blame? Oh my God, this is so horrible, I can tell you. We are so prone to blame everybody with what is happening to us, right? And now I mean, give me the pleasure. I'm Jewish. Give me the pleasure of blaming somebody. Okay, give me the pleasure of feel guilt and put blame on somebody else. And I can't do that. Understanding karma. So, do you want to change your world? Do you want to change your movie? One of the strongest tools that we have is Tantra. This is the strongest tool because the transformative change in your mind, in your patterns are so strong. And we have so many patterns that we have from our previous life. I mean, I don't have to go to my previous life. I can go even into this life, Do you remember that when we said, I'm not worthy, or I'm not allowed to get angry, or I'm not allowed to blame somebody. Those are all patterns that we have received from our teachers, from our parents, from our culture. Do you want to change that? It's up to you. You don't have to. But my suggestion is that I'm going to give you in the next a couple of months, all the teachings that will provide you the tools to do that. The tools are not the sadhanas. I will not give you the sadhanas. The sadhanas you will receive from the lamas that will give you the empowerment. I will give you the tools of understanding. Why do you want to put in efforts? Otherwise, nothing will change. You can receive thousands of empowerments. You will have thousands of seats, but nothing will be changed. I hope that I just gave you now the understanding why we need an empowerment and why do we need the commitment in the empowerments. And I'm not so sure I know that those lamas that stopped giving any commitments were very compassionate. But I'm not sure. It's like, the very compassionate mother that can give her child to eat 5 kilos of ice cream. I don't know how compassionate is that, because she doesn't want to, to work with other things that might hurt them or. So I hope that I gave you some kind of an idea about this is my view of how I perceive the tantric samaya, the tantric empowerment, and why we need to give this some kind of thoughts. Why do you want to clear up your motivation about why do I practice Tantra, if at all? Okay. So we still have some time and we can open up to some questions. Yes, Beth. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you again for jumping again. I always love your questions.
Well, I have 2 questions. One is, you mentioned saying the mantra 3 times. Does a sort of mini visualization accompany that? And my second question is, where did that recommendation or prescription come from to do 3 mantras a day?
Okay. So I'll start with the second question, okay? And then I'll go back to the first one. As I told you, I did many, many retreats, solitary, silent retreat, and practicing, very thoroughly, whatever my teachers and whatever I received. And there were some kind of circumstances that I felt that I cannot practice the specific sadhana and the specific deity that I was practicing at that time. So one of my teachers, which is an amazing teacher. He not only taught me a lot, he was also my personal mentor and psychotherapist. His name is Robert Priest, and we will dive into his knowledge in the psychology part of the Tantra. He was actually, for many, many years, he was a student of Lama Yeshe, and he did a 5-year retreat in India, and he was also a student of the Dalai Lama. And he went through a lot of kind of depression and stuff like that during his retreats. So one day he came to the Dalai Lama and to Zang Rinpoche, which was one of his teachers in India, and to Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, because he was part of the FPMT, and he asked them, I can't practice this and this Tantra anymore. What should I do? So the Dalai Lama told him, you should put it on the shelf with a lot of respect, the sadhana. But in order to keep a small flame, do 3 mantras a day of this specific deity. That's the first time when I heard that, okay? And then, all of a sudden, I hear Lama Lina. When people are asking her, I cannot do that. And then she says the same, okay? So for me, when the first time happened to me, when I asked him, he said to me that the Dalai Lama told him that, and I hugged that attitude because I felt that I need a small flame in order to hold my samaya, my commitment to the deity, to the archetype, and also to the teachers that gave me this sadhana. And then when I started to practice Dzogchen with Lama Lina, I don't know if I told you that or not, but I think it was maybe 3 or 4 months after I first met her, very short after I met her, she all of a sudden looked, you know how she looks at you like that. And she said, Tori, stop practicing Tantra. Only Dzogchen. I almost died at that minute because, my Lama took my toy, my beautiful toy from me. It's like taking the pacifier from a child, What do you mean I'm not going to do Tantra? What do you mean I'm not going to do that? And then she told me, there is a reason why I'm telling you that. And please, she didn't say that in this way, but please stop doing Tantra. Do only Dzogchen. Well, of course, I'm a rebellion and I'm not such a good student. So what I did is I sneaked Tantra here and there. I never hidden that from her. I told her that, and she was always laughing about that. But I did manage to practice mainly Dzogchen, okay? And then one day, I met her in Tsopema, I think it was, yes, in Tsopema. And I came to Tsopema, and before I met her, there was the time of the year that the Drikung Kagyu, which is one of my lineages, are doing the Yamantaka Drupchen. And down the stairs from my flat, there was a Drikung Kagyu monastery, and I can hear all of a sudden the singing of that. And so I rushed into it, and I started to do the Drupchen with them, with all the monks. They were amazed. What is this white woman sitting here? They were only monks, maybe 20 of them, and doing with us the Drupchen. So I told that to Lama Lina, and then she looked at me and said, now it's time to go back to Tantra. You can do it now. And only when I got back to Tantra, I understood why she put me for so many years out of Tantra. But I always kept the flame on. That's why I could rush into the monastery and all of a sudden do the Yamantaka Drupchen, because it was there. It was not, the flame was not shut off. It was there, okay? So that was the first, for your second question. As for the first question about the visualization, I just had a discussion about that with one of my friends yesterday. It's funny. He said that for some reason he can't do the visualization of the sadhana that he have received anymore. He can't do that anymore. So I said to him, why can't you do that? And he explained to me why he can't do that. And then I said to him, so why don't you create your own sadhana? And he was like, what? What do you mean? Why can't I create? I mean, sadhana is sadhana, you know? And I said to him, well, you practice the Pabonka Rinpoche sadhana for so many years, right? What do you think Pabonka Rinpoche created this sadhana? So many lamas creating their sadhana. So why can't you just practice something that you will like, and you will have your visualization, and you will have your rhythm, that thing that you want to do. So the visualization, it's not something that has been, it's the way we got teaching about it, it's because we are receiving something we can't even imagine. But after you practice that for a while, you're able to create your own visualization. You don't have to stick to a specific visualization that has been created by somebody else somewhere there. And when we'll dive into the psychology of Tantra, we'll dive into the archetype and everything and the symbols and all of that, you will see that actually your symbols and my symbols are totally different. And you will absorb something that will work for you. And I will absorb something that works for me. And we don't have to do the same thing. You know, it's not one size. Tantra has never been one size. Everybody practiced that differently. The teachings in the universities, in the monasteries, had to be very, very consistent because they want to give it to, 100 students that were there. But each one of them received something else, and each one of them practiced something else, although the sadhana is the same. That goes with the visualization. I hope I answered your questions. Anybody else? Yes. Hi, Richard. How are you? You're muted. I can't hear you.
Hi. Hello. Yeah. Question I got is, like you'll hear, people say, oh, well, if you're having a lot of fear, practice green Tara. If you're having this other defilement, practice this. Is there like one practice that removes all the defilements, or should you bounce around to each one of them and just deal with one you're suffering from the most at the time,
Okay. So this is interesting. Okay. Just mute yourself because I think I'm echoing in your computer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, hold on.
So when you look at the deities, not only the visual looking in the tankas or archetypes, but when you're diving into the sadhanas of different deities, what you see is that you're receiving a different energy. I think we'll get into more details about that next week when we'll dive into the different kind of tantras, because the answer is there. But mainly what happens is that all the big lamas are saying that Garchen Rinpoche and Drupal Rinpoche, who are my main tantric teachers, they are saying that again and again. When you practice one tantra, one deity, you become all the Buddhas. If you practice, because when you have, let's say, if you have Chöku'i or you have Vajrayogini, and you practice that in the same sadhana, you have all kind of energies. You have the pacifier energy, like with white Tara and green Tara. You have the fierce energy, like Yamantaka or Vajrakilaya or stuff like that. Or you have the Chad energy, or which goes mainly with Machik Labrun or with Tromanagmo. So you have everything in the same sadhana. The question is, what do you need at that moment? Because if I need something, if I feel that my, let's say, my selfishness or my attachments to stuff are now growing up on me for some reason, mainly karma, but for some reason that happens. In the same sadhana, let's say Vajrayogini, I can practice, in this sadhana, I can practice Chö, which is eliminating my ego, eliminating my desire to this body onto anything, and just giving and giving, the offering of giving your body and everything. It's in the same sadhana that there is the part of, let's say, preparation for death. I will define that. And then you have this dissolution part, and you go through the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, which is the death and the bardo and the rebirth. And you're now emphasizing that. So maybe on a daily basis, or when I go to my session and I don't feel like very selfish right now, or less, maybe I don't feel so attached to my stuff, I don't need to emphasize Chö. But I learned that thoroughly. When I go through that, even if I do it very briefly, I can catch that, and it works on my subconsciousness. And maybe now I feel that I need to prepare myself to death. So I'll go more of the part of the dissolution. Okay? That's the long answer. The short answer, I'll give you the answer that Lamalina gives. Always do what you like. Otherwise, you will not do that. If you like white Tara, do white Tara. If you like green Tara, do green Tara. If you like Kurukula, do Kurukula. Because you're not about, I can tell you from my personal, I received the white Tara initiation and I practiced that for a while. But this is not a deity that I feel drawn to. I don't practice white Tara. What does it say? That I will not overcome obstacles? Yeah, Yamataka is very nice to overcome obstacles. Oh, Dorji Purba is also very nice about that. But can you do Dorji Purba? Can you do it, Yamataka? It doesn't mean that they're not good, that this one is not good. It means maybe I'm not ready to do Dorji Purba or Yamantaka or, I don't know, Chakrasamvara, because they are fierce deities. Maybe I'm not ready for that. Maybe I feel reject to that. We have to work with our tendencies. And then something happens and it changed. Remember the movie Change. Okay, when the more you work, the movie change. And then all of a sudden, something else comes up. And the new thing that comes up and bring a lot of energy into my life right now from this place of another, guess where it comes from? My movie. Nobody else movie. Nobody else can project my movie. I'm the only one who can project my own movie. Okay. Anybody else before we close up? No, okay. So thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure being with you. Next week, we're going to dive into the different kind of tantras, and I think you will be able to see more of what just Richard was asking, because there are a lot of a differentiation between different tantras, and it doesn't mean that this one is better than this one. It means that it's a different tool, two different occasions. You know how to use that, right? Okay, so just dedicate the time that we've been together. We put a lot of time together in order to clear up our motivation. I hope that you're going to go this week and ask yourself those questions. What is my motivation? Why do I practice? It's a very good question to ask yourself from time to time. Gewadi yududam chechi sam May all wars all over the world will stop. And everybody will be happy because we are interconnected in our movie. Bye, guys.